Today we are learning Peirush of Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah. Is a chametz and has 10 halachas. We'll go to page 17. At the top you have here the Rambam. We're going to go down to the Peirush HaMeir. The time of eating chametz will be discussed. Its penalty for eating it. The source that if you eat or drink chametz that is made into a liquid form and is forbidden, and also the amount of time that connects eating, which is 9 minutes, is what is the time for drinking. We begin with kol oichel kol gzayas chametz of Pesach. Anyone who eats a gzayas chametz on Pesach from beginning of the night of the 15th of Nisan. These are the words of the Rambam in bold. Atzoif yoim echad v'esrim b'Nisan, until the end of the 21st day of Nisan. These are the 7 days of Pesach. He's b'mezid. If he did it willfully, it's chayav koris. We derive this from what it says in Shmois Yud Beis. Shivas yom matzis techelu ach b'yom harishon tashbisu shoyer mivotechem. That 7 days you shall eat chametz, but on the first day you should rid yourself of any fermented yeast from your houses. Even though before it said so'er, here it says whoever eats chametz will be cut off. From the first day of Pesach till the 7th day of Pesach, b'shoigig, if he does it unintentionally, so he's chayav korban chatas kavua. He has to bring a regular korban. Echad ha'oichel, this applies to both someone who eats, ve'echad ha'mamacher, or somebody who takes a solid and makes it into a liquid, v'shoisa, and drinks it. The Magen Mishnah cites that the source of eating chametz unintentionally is chayav chatos. It's found in the Mishnah in Krisus that a oichel chametz at Pesach is included in the averes of do not do something amazing that one has. If one does it amazing, he's liable for koris. Therefore, any such lav, any such negative commandment, for its transgression, one brings a chatos. But if he didn't bring a korban Pesach, which is a positive commandment, even though he's chayav koris, there is no din of a chatos on the unintentional non-bringing of a korban Pesach. Now, how do you know that drinking is like eating? Doesn't matter whether the Rambam states whether one eats it or one drinks it. The Magen Mishnah cites a Mishnah in Chulin, Kuv Chov, and Psochem Lamedei Amad Aleph, that if you make it into a liquid and you drink it, the chiyuv is koris, as it says in Shmois Yud Beis, v'nichos ha'nefesh, to tell you even if you drink it. And Tosfos asks a question: why do I need a posuk to add it? Every time, whenever the Torah says we can't eat, we know it means it includes drinking, as it says, it says you shall eat meiser sheni, and this comes from wheat, which is eaten. Is oil, is wine and oil, and he calls wine eating. So you see the Torah refers to drinking in the same words as eating. Why do we need a separate posuk to teach us you can't drink chametz? So the Sefer HaKovetz questions if whether an item that was food and was made it was liquefied and it was drunk is called eating, because it's not the usual way. And that's why we need a posuk to tell us, even though it's not the usual way that it's done, it's still also as long as it can be drunk. And therefore, if not for this added posuk, we would exclude it for not being the normal way of eating. The Rambam's language is actually found in the Tosefta, one who eats and one who liquefies and drinks. The Rambam in Hilchos Chametz, in the 3rd chapter, Halacha Yud, writes, somebody who liquefied chalif, which is fat, which is forbidden to be eaten, tomei and be'oir, and he did it in fire. That's how you make the solid fat become liquid. V'gomoy, and he swallowed it. He is tomei as if he has eaten it. Because shiur is part of eating it. So the Halacha Mishnah asks a question. From what we learn in Chulin, Kuv Chov, you turn the page, you go to the bottom again to the Peirush HaMeir, that somebody who liquefies something that's forbidden and drinks it, he's not liable, because it says V'nichos ha'nefesh. It tells you that even if you drink it. And Toys asks the question, should every place shiur, as we asked before, is part of eating? And by this change that he made it a solid into a liquid, it's not considered a food, and therefore, without the posuk, we would need it. And therefore, why does the Rambam assume that by chelev, it's automatically, even though it's liquid, it's part of eating? And the answer is that what the Rambam says, that drinking is the same as eating, is from this limud. Once we have by chometz v'nechus ha'nefesh, we learn, as we do with ma'amotzinu, that any drinking is part of eating if it's the same item, such as whether it's chometz that's liquefied or chelev that's liquefied. Now, the question is, if the time of drinking is the same as the time of eating, which is 9 minutes or less. And when it says whether you eat or you drink that which has been liquefied, it would seem that he states them together, that their time limitation is the same. The time that one is considered liable for eating a kazayas. And that seems to be what it said in the Gemara in Chulin, and in the Toseftim Sochim. The Yad Eson asks a question, and so asks the Shalos of Jews Beis Ephraim. We find in Hilchos Machon Nesher that if somebody drinks a revius of stam yenom, meaning stam yenom is wine that one is forbidden to drink, and he drinks it slowly, or he took chometz and liquefied it, if he waited the time that it takes to drink a revius, and he doesn't mention the time of a kazayas, so it would seem from here that we have proof that a kazayas, that the time of drinking is different than the time of eating. And there in the Gemara, they answer that anything that's liquid, it's always measured by the time it takes to swallow a revius. Because why a revius and a kazayas have the same content, the same amount within them. And this is what the Rambam feels when food has been liquefied. It has the same, it's talking about a kazayas. Revius, that there's a kazayas of liquefied chometz in the revius. And therefore, he writes them the shiur as the kazayas. So Beis Ephraim asks the question, why does he write that the chiyuv is a time of a revius? Why does he mention kazayas? If we're saying that the reason he's liable is because within the liquefied form it has a kazayas. How do we know that the time limitation is different? Because it was originally a food item. Furthermore, in Hilchos Trumas he writes that Achilas Truma is bekazayas. And there specifically, even though he's talking about shiur, if you drink wine of Truma, for example, it's also bekazayas. So we see that the Rambam seems to always include a kazayas as the measure of time of eating kazayas rather than a revius. We'll turn the page to the Beis Ephraim answers that the obligation, the liability for drinking that food which has been liquefied is the bekazayas. And even though he writes by the stam yenom that it's talking about kedei revius, still we can say that he was referring there only to the stam yenom, even though he includes chometz in the sentence. But chometz that has been liquefied he would only be liable. He would be liable even in the time of a kezayis because it was once food. And so writes the Imrei Bino in the name of Shuvah Zera Avrom that even though they're liquefied and is drunk, the shiur is kezayis. The shiur would be of connecting the beginning of drinking to the end of it would be a revius. But if he ate half a kezayis and he drank half a kezayis, there's a question: which shiur do you use in such a situation? Do you use the shiur of achilo, which is 9 minutes, or the shiur of revius, which is a lesser time, or a combination thereof? Can you do so? The Afike Yam, which is the sefer of the Goyin of Mechel Zilber, he writes that Menachem Zembe Zatzal, Hashem Yinkim Domoy, wrote that if you liquefied chometz, the chiyuv of Bal Yiro is berevius, just like any other drinking. But the Afike Yam disagrees, and he says the shiur is the kezayis, and if the revius does not contain a kezayis, then he would not be liable. Rabbeinu Manoach is of the opinion that only chometz that was liquefied and drunk is considered like food, and therefore you're chayav koris. But if he took matzah and drank it, in other words, he liquefied it and drank it, he would not be yotze to the obligation of eating matzah, even though it's considered eating by chometz, because you have to see that he ate it, and you have to taste the matzah. Because when he liquefied it, he doesn't have neither of these two aspects of either the recognition of eating or drinking. And chometz, however, you're liable not for the act of doing it, but rather because the body benefits from it. And that's why Menachem Zembe says, therefore he adds that that's only when he drank it in the time of a revius. But if he drank it small amounts, and it took longer than the time of drinking a revius, he would be poter. So we see that Menachem Zembe Zatzal holds that shti is ke'ilo only regarding what its penalty is, but the time is not the same as eating it, and therefore it does not reckon with a kezayis, only the revius. In Mi'at Hashem, we will continue on Perek Aleph Halacha Beis in the next shiur.